Hi again then guys, and welcome to another special projects replica build. And we have of course replicated a Porsche before in this series. We replicated the 996 shape 911 GT2 using this same vehicle, the Roof RGT, as the base model. Now though, we're turning our attention to the slightly more track oriented and not necessarily quite as quick version of the 911, which is one of the most popular versions of it when it comes to hardcore high performance models. Not just of the 911 in fact, but of Porsche in general, and that is of course the GT3. Now you also have the GT3 RS of course, but this is not the RS, this is just the normal GT3, and in particular this is the 2003 shape GT3 that we are replicating. Now as far as the visuals, we fitted it with Enkei RP03 rims, the same rims that we used for the GT2, because quite simply none of the rims are that close to the actual 911 GT3's wheels. So we've just gone for wheels which look about as appropriate as possible to the model. You could of course leave them stock, because those 5-spoke rims look good on the car as well. I've opted to change them though. And as far as the colour, of course, being a production model, you can fit it in whatever paint colour you want. I've opted for a yellow, as you can see, and the yellow that I've used is called Imola Yellow from the Audi RS4. So that's where you can get that if you do want to use that particular yellow, but of course there are a huge amount of yellows to choose from. So we will go over first of all to the mechanical tuning garage for the replica of the car, and then take it out of course to a racetrack to let it prove itself. Now, as always, of course, I do like to round off these replicas, if at all possible, to the nearest PP, and thankfully for this one, it's not too difficult to do so. It's also for a very relevant PP, 500, where a lot of people like to race. Now, we've gone for sports soft tyres, because of course it is more of a street-based build. We've left the brakes stock, as we usually do on these production car replicas. For the suspension, we've left the ride height as it already is. For the springs, we've slightly increased them to 375 and 875. The dampers and anti-roll we've left on 3. We've got neutral camber, neutral toe. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. For the diff on this one, we've gone a little bit more loose than the GT2, if I remember correctly, and the handling is a little bit more tail happy on this car, very deliberately so. I wanted it to be more playful, more loose, and it also, although I believe, if I remember correctly, is slightly heavier than the GT2 replica, it actually feels lighter. Now I've gone for initial torque halfway. If you do want the car to be stiffer, take that even higher, and vice versa if you want it to be looser. Acceleration and braking we've got as low as possible. As far as power, the actual 2003 shape model has 381 horsepower. Now technically you don't need to do the stage 3 engine tune. You can just do an oil change and reduce the limiter less, but of course I wanted it to be PP relevant. So we fitted the stage 3 tune, plus, as I said, the oil change, then reduced it down to 76% power, and as far as the weight, you want to add a 121 kilo ballast to bring us up to 1451 kilos, and then I've opted to move that back 4% just to retain the 42-58 weight split. And finally, for the gearbox, we are running the actual gears of the 03 shape GT3, so you want an auto setting of 199, then individual gears of 3820, 2260, 1640, 1290, 1060 and 920, with a final drive of 344. And that's it overall for the replica of the mechanicals of the GT3 from that particular year. So now let's take it out to a track, of course, to see how it compares to the GT2. Now, of course, for pure speed, this car is slower than the GT2 replica. It is running significantly less power and, as I said, if I remember correctly, more weight as well. But the GT3, of course, is more about the track potential, whereas the GT2 is kind of more about being an extreme all-rounder. This car is very fun to drive, even on sports softs with relatively production similar suspension, etc. We've gone a little bit softer than you typically have It feels certainly like the hardcore GT3 should, and having driven the GT3 from Porsche on Forza, although it was the 997 shape, but it's close enough in the family to be justifiable, I can say that this isn't too far off what the car should feel like were it featured on the game. So if you do decide to use this build, obviously I hope you find it fun, maybe even competitive in racing. And that's it overall for this build, so I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.